like about you, Jared?
Oh, what's that?
Honestly, I don't know you all that well. We've hung out a few times,
Mhm.
but you strike me as an individual that is genuinely himself.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny. I haven't always been this way. We have a lot of conversations about that, Lindsay and I, about I get to be myself now. I finally got there, and it's a very comfortable feeling.
When did you get there?
I think somewhere in the last like 3 or 4 years, really.
Okay.
I just I hate to be like wicked nerdy and make a Phoenix and an Ashes comparison, but it feels a little bit like that.
I think that's beautiful.
I kind of stopped doing the old stuff I was doing, and I was able to not worry about what anybody thought.
Sure.
I'm just myself now.
You think I just kind of came with age, experience, all of the above?
A lot of trial and error, a lot of error.
Sure, sure. No, because you just strike me as somebody that knows who they are, is unapologetic.
Yeah, nowadays. Yep.
And that's something that I feel like I'm coming into myself. But, like yourself, that wasn't always the case. And sometimes I feel like that's not, because, one of my biggest challenges as an individual is this overarching feeling of inadequacy. And that stems from my childhood and certain traumas or whatever. And, I know my value, my worth, things that I'm good at. I have a pretty good sense of self. Mm-hmm. But, it's all about the wiring. And I'm wired a certain way.
Yeah, same here.
But no, I appreciate that about you because, there are certain things that you know about me that some of my quote unquote closest people don't know. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And, I remember we had a conversation about a certain thing and I was actually kind of looking back. I'm like, I'm surprised I admitted that to him. But like, you don't strike me as a judgmental type.
No. Well, I grew up in a town where a lot of people are judgmental, and it was kind of a turnoff to me. Like I just didn't understand why people just couldn't be open-minded to see how people were.
Where'd you grow up?
Uxbridge, Mass.
Okay.
Yep. It's like south of Worcester by about 20 minutes.
Sure.
Right on the Rhode Island line.
Sure.
Real small town. And like people there was a lot of face value judgment. People didn't really care about how people were on the inside. And I, having put up this weird persona that wasn't really me, was someone else on the inside, and people weren't taking the time to see that person. And I think that I was turned off by that whole, all right, well, you're just judging me because I play football and I'm white middle-class American, instead of being like, okay, this dude is bananas on the inside, and I either like that or I don't like it.
Sure.
I was judged on a face value, and I didn't like that.
What made you different?
I think a lot of things. My family life wasn't the best growing up, so I saw a lot of stuff that gave me enough trauma, I think, maybe to look into like a little bit of an alternative outlook. Mm-hmm. I ended up going to school in a pretty urban. I went to school in Worcester, Mass, and that's pretty urban. And I don't know. I just got into the right places in the right times to keep me from becoming, the people that I hated when I was growing up.
Yeah,
small town American white racists. Sure,
that's wild. And you had mentioned to me earlier that you had a black friend in high school going to college, right?
One.
Yeah. Now, he was the only person in your high school?
He was the only black person I went to high school with.
So how did that come about?
This is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to tell you the truth about it.
Okay.
So we had a pretty mediocre football program. This was my...
I already know where this is going.
Yep. It's terrible, but I'm going to tell you the truth because that's what you do. We had before I was in high school, there was one of the coaches was a black man named... I don't want to say his name, but he knows who he is. And when we were in high school, he had a nephew that was getting into trouble where he was going to school. He decided to option for the school choice program, and his nephew went to my high school, black guy. Mm-hmm. And we actually had the best football season I've had in my entire life.
Was he a running back?
He was a running back.
Of course he was.
Yes, he played a hell of a defensive back also.
Okay.
Oddly enough, he was really good at his other school for hockey, but that's a totally different story.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
Whenever I see a black guy on the ice,
he was pretty good too.
I'm always scratching my head, like, How does that happen? Like, how did you afford to even have that equipment growing up?
But we didn't have hockey because it was too expensive.
You know?
Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, I mean, if you're from Canada or something,
Yeah, I guess
that
it's right
probably
there.
makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
But, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a big commitment, but he was really good at it.
Sure.
And well, you know, whatever. He got into some problems, and he ended up coming to my school. And we had we were like tied for something to go to the Super Bowl, first time in a long time in my school's history. And you know, after the football season, I'm sure you know what's going to happen. He was driven out of the school in probably about 2 months, and he ended up transferring someplace else. I don't know.
When you say driven, what do you mean?
He got into trouble for everything.
Okay.
Everything. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, having grown up in this town and being a little different mindset on things, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like let's put weed in this kid's pocket to get him in trouble. For real. That's how we grew up. But then I went from that to, you know, Worcester State, which is a crazy melting pot, you know? And
sure.
I didn't really, like we were just talking about, like it didn't really, it wasn't like, oh, look at these, there's different colored people everywhere. It was, I knew people for probably, like we were just starting to talk about, I was looking for what was on the inside. I didn't really give a shit what color they were. You know?
Sure. No, that's cool, dude. Another reason why I feel like you and I vibe is because, you know, like a lot of people that I know, it almost seems like I know more people who are recovering addicts than are not, right? And you are one of the very lucky few who was able to find themselves on the other side of that.
Yeah,
find some kind of normalcy in their life.
Well, normalcy, I don't know if you want to call it that.
But you know what I mean, relatively.
Relative normalcy.
Sure.
It does cause for a wonderful sense of humor, I can tell you that.
No, you are a funny guy.
Yeah, no, I'm blessed to be here. I don't know by what or by who, but
so tell us a little bit about your journey. So, like, what is what is your journey? What was your journey like how did you start? What was your drug of choice? And ultimately, you know, what got you out of it?
Well, I grew up in a small town, like we said. We had house parties and stuff like that. And my mother was I don't have any idea really. We don't speak anymore, but she was an alcoholic for the majority of my life. So so drinking was kind of a turnoff for me. Okay. And you know, there's the town I grew up in is about halfway between Worcester and Providence, so drugs weren't hard to get a hold of.
Sure.
The first thing I ever ended up doing was heroin.
That's crazy to me, dude.
Yeah, it was at a house party.
Completely just bypass weed and go straight to fucking heroin.
Yeah, and it wasn't like you know, I didn't do it all the time. I did it.
You sniff it or you sniff it?
Shot it.
What? How old were you?
15.
And you weren't scared?
I was scared to death.
And you knew that, you know, you must have known that, like, there must have been some dire consequences for getting into that, right?
Oh, no, I had no idea.
Was there lack of education back then?
No, we had DARE, but it was like
we had DARE.
It was they were focusing on us smoking weed and you know, I didn't have really any idea what it was. It looked like the people that were doing it were having fun, I guess is the word I thought then. And you know, it wasn't something I did often. It wasn't really all that available, but it was there.
Sure.
The pain pills were more there. And I did a lot of that and, you know, smoked weed in high school, but I didn't drink till I was 21. Went from not drinking till I was 21 to being a pretty much an alcoholic, and then from that to selling and doing cocaine, and painkillers came back around, and one day I went to get some pain pills from a dealer, and he had heroin instead, and I was right back there, and that was a pretty harrowing, gripping addiction.
Whoa. So like you were like, that was kind of like a fork in the road. Like it was like a fork in the road moment where you're like, if you think you kind of held off on that and waited on the pain pills, do you think your life would have turned out differently?
I think I would have got there eventually anyhow. Because it just seems like, you know, having been through some halls of recovery and meeting a bunch of other recovering addicts, it seems like a lot of people got there that way. So it seems like it would have been an eventuality playing around with the opiates in general.
So what was your rock bottom that got you out of it?
What got me out of it, I died. I overdosed. I had been clean for a while. I actually overdosed the night of a recovery meeting that a friend of mine spoke at, and I was a really active participant in. Another friend of mine needed something. I got it for him.
Oh, man.
He broke me off, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the back of an ambulance, handcuffed.
So when he broke you off, like he's just like, here.
Yeah, I sniffed it. I didn't even shoot when I passed, but it's at this point, it's not even heroin, it's fentanyl, and that's killing everybody.
So you think that's what it was? It was the fentanyl.
Oh, it definitely was. It was fentanyl.
How long ago was this?
This was 4.5 years ago. It was 5 years, June 20th. And I was dead for 13 minutes, 12 minutes.
Like wasn't breathing.
Well, you like unresponsive, low pulse. Like they had to bring me back with Narcan, and yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was a crazy experience.
And you mentioned to me that you had potentially an extraterrestrial. I don't know, extraterrestrial is the word, but
I think that qualifies.
Extraterrestrial experience.
I had something.
So what happened?
Well, I had like a white light type of a
moment,
type of a vision, I guess, and I remember seeing memories from my life. I remember seeing my aunt a lot. If she's listening, I remember seeing you a lot.
So you see your life flash before your eyes.
I guess flash before your eyes is the best. To put a context visually to it.
It's like kind of like tripping, right?
Almost like seeing Polaroids flipping around my head in a circular motion, just as they cross my line of sight. Catching that memory.
Okay.
Yeah, almost like a tornado is going by, but you catch the Polaroid as it goes by your line of sight type thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever put that into words, but yeah,
well put.
Thank you. And then there was also like a purple hand trying to grab me from behind, like a very large purple hand trying to like wrap around my rib cage, and it was like really kind of a fleshy purple. I think I mentioned last time, kind of like Kang from the Ninja Turtles with color. That's what always comes to my head, so I have to say that. And
like the Grim Reaper,
like I guess it could have been skeleton-y. I just remember it being purple.
Well, like
that's I guess.
No, was it like a positive entity?
No, it was a negative force, and I remember like trying to like almost as if I was wrapped up in rope and trying to like shed the rope with my arms, like shrug it away and yelling and screaming, and people that were there said that I was yelling and screaming like a wild animal, and then I was back in the back of an ambulance, and that was the last time I did any of those.
How did you explain that to yourself after?
I don't think I really did. I think I just kind of was like, all right, well, that happened. And it was, I thought that I was dying. While it was happening, I feel like I remember being aware that I was dying and not wanting to. And, that was like it was almost like a switch went off. And I'm not going to tell you that it's something I haven't wanted to do in the amount of time. It's relatively easy to not want to do it at this point after that, but it just is not an option. I don't want to die. As simple as that sounds. And before that happened, I didn't care if I did or not. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think it's like people that are working on ladders a lot.
Sure.
Bop around on ladders with zero fear until they fall.
Yeah,
and then they're a lot more pensive because they know how the ground feels.
So I mean, I know everybody's different, but there are a lot of addicts that have died multiple times. Why hasn't that survival instinct kicked in for them, do you think?
I don't know. I really wish that I could bottle, like, this is such a cheesy live, laugh, love thing to say, but I wish I could, like, bottle what I experienced so that other people could drink it and be like, oh, I don't have to do this shit anymore. Like, it's something I'm really grateful for.
So did you feel more of a sense of purpose after that experience?
I'm not going to lie and say, yeah, I don't think so.
No? Just didn't want to die.
Well, I found out pretty quickly after that overdose that my daughter was coming. So I don't know. I don't want to tie it to that, but it's convenient that it's there. But in the few weeks in between my overdose and the time that I found out that my daughter was going to be coming, I still had that sense of I'm never doing that again.
Okay.
So I don't want to tie it to that, but I guess if you want to put a face to that reason, she probably played into it quite a bit.
So I got a weird question.
All right, I like those.
What do you miss about those times where you were heavily addicted?
Not a lot.
Okay.
I think that's a good question. I think that a total mental lack of responsibility and accountability gives you a sense of freedom.
Okay.
So I think that people have a difficult time putting down that lifestyle because you kind of have a chance to be like, well, I'm a piece of shit, so fuck it. I'm only hurting myself. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
when you
that's
get on
not-
the other end, it's like, oh my God, I was hurting everybody.
Everybody.
So it's like almost like like, you know, once you see something, you can't unsee it. You can't
Sure.
put the toothpaste back in, I
Sure.
guess. For me, that's how it was because, you know, I would just, even if I wanted to go do something, I would feel so guilty on the inside for having betrayed myself.
Sure.
Never mind everybody else that's put tons and tons of trust into me.
Sure.
You know?
So, what were relationships like? And I'm talking about like relationships in general.
I don't think that there were any. I think that it was all,
codependency.
motive driven.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I didn't choose my relationships based on value. I choose them, you know,
Access.
this girl had a car,
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or
But you didn't develop any bonds because, you know, there is such a thing as like trauma bonding, right? And if like you're going through like hell, right, with another individual, there's sometimes a bond that kind of develops from that, right? Like you don't have any friends from that period that you still
I have one friend left from when
Okay.
I was growing up.
Okay.
But I think that that's because we were friends before.
Okay, that makes
We were
sense.
using together. None of the friends that I used to run with and do drugs with, I'm
Yeah.
not friends with any of them anymore.
Yeah. Well, no parts of that.
And it kind of happened organically. It's not like it was like I shut them off.
Yeah.
It was like we just had different,
Sure.
you know, we had different agendas at different times, and we've grown apart because we were really just kind of getting it together. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we were friends, but we were just kind of helping each other get high.
Sure.
I think the trauma bonds that I have are people that I've met in recovery.
Okay.
And, you know, just because I have been clean for the amount of time I have, I've been in recovery longer than that
Yeah.
because it took me a long time. It wasn't a perfect process for me.
So how long did it take for you to get to the point where you just stopped doing the drugs?
Like 5 years.
wow.
Yeah.
A half a decade.
Yeah, and that's halfway houses, sober houses,
Just-
programs, jail, all kinds of stuff.
Just falling down and getting back up.
Yeah, and you know, I think the first time I went to a detox, you know, the people come in. You know, I went to a 2-week program after, and the fellowships come in and they talk, and I listened. I don't know why I did. Some people didn't, but I did. So some of the stuff kind of sat with me. And one person said something early on, and it was like, "You're never going to be able to go back out there and get fucked up and not think about what we're talking about in here ever again." And he was right. So every time I went back out and still was like, I don't care, whatever, this is who I am. In the back of my head, there was a voice that was like, don't forget what homeboy said when you was at the rehab,
Sure.
you know, and thank God for that. You know, I don't know, whoever you are, thanks, homie. Because that I think that to some people, maybe, you know, back to that earlier question, maybe some people don't realize that you're never going to be able to get high the same again once
Yeah.
you know what it's like to be clean, you know? So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. So my next question was, all right, so like what scared you about yourself, or what did you learn about your dark side during that period that like maybe shocked you?
I learned in a pretty relatively quickly slippery slope that my sense of values was very compromisable.
That usually happens with drugs.
Yeah, but it was like really fast. Like I started to do things that I wouldn't do today and wouldn't have done before.
So that, I mean, that's the drugs, though. That's not necessarily, is that you, or is that the drugs?
Well, that's a really whole other conversation. I don't know, because
what do you think, though?
I think that in, you know, without being too self-aggrandizing, I think that I'm a generally good person.
Sure.
So
I think so too.
I think that the drugs certainly helped point my moral compass further south than it would have.
Sure.
And it's necessity based too. When you start to realize that you're dealing with these people that are doing shady things, why not do it with them? And you know, these people are robbing people. Like, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, is it really that big of a deal if I take it from somebody that has a lot of money? Like, you know, you start to ask yourself these questions like, they don't need it. They got 4 watches. I'll just take one, you know?
Even with all that said, I mean, was there a line you still wouldn't cross during that period?
I don't know. I never got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing that.
Wow.
But I guess I was blessed enough to not be put in positions where like I had to do something that I didn't want to do.
Sure.
But there was definitely times when I did stuff that I was like, I can't fucking believe I just did that.
So how long would you say you were an active addict?
Probably about 18 to 20 years.
What?
Yeah.
Actively.
Yeah, because I mean, I started around when I was 15, and I didn't stop until the first time I went in anywhere, I was 33, and I didn't really start taking it seriously until I was at least 35. So
when you were in the depths of it, like, what does it feel like? Like, as best as you can, what does it feel like physically to be like in that state or to be living that kind of life?
It kind of feels like knowing that, it feels like there's this gigantic boulder on top of your back, and it feels like you know that it doesn't matter how much you do, you're never going to get that boulder off. You can maybe get it like 98% of the way out of the canyon so you can skeet off and it's not on your back anymore, but it's always going to roll back on you, and you're always going to have to carry the weight.
So I remember watching some interviews with some active addicts in the streets, and I can remember there was this one kid from Arizona named Junior. He was like 19, 20 years old, and he was like deep into the blues, and he was talking about like,
in the past 6 months I probably only shit like, excuse my language, I probably only shit like 5 times.
What?
Oh yeah,
that's a thing.
That's a thing. Oh yeah. I had a poop screwdriver next to my toilet.
A what?
A poop screwdriver, so I didn't jam up the plumbing. Break it up so it'll go down.
Was it that hard?
Oh yeah. Yep.
How often would you take a shit?
Like once every 4 to 5 days.
What? And it would just build up?
Yep.
You weren't eating. Like, if you're an addict, you're not really eating like that, right?
I was still eating. I didn't. I had to maintain appearances because I lived like a kind of a normal as could be life.
So you were a functioning addict?
I don't think that exists.
I was going to say, like, I know.
But I held a job.
You're sitting there in the corner doing Tai Chi, fucking nodding off.
Yeah,
not really.
Yeah, no. I mean, it wasn't high functioning, but I held a job.
Sure.
A good job.
Yeah.
Somehow, like I was able to bullshit just enough.
Sure.
Where everybody thought that I was all right until I wasn't.
No, now that you mention it, I actually have a buddy. I won't say his name. But he actually went through detox in the kitchen, cooking in the kitchen at work.
Oh, God, that is disgusting to think about.
And just muscling through it.
Oh,
muscling through it.
I used to do that too, but
like
not working in the kitchen. That is rugged.
I mean, I've never had that. I don't know what it feels like to, detox from heroin. I can't imagine like the pain and the struggle, but like, kudos to him for fucking
that guy's
being
warrior.
a gangster.
Yeah,
you know him. I just won't say any names.
Yeah, he's got Viking horns.
So you didn't mention. So you died, and obviously your daughter. How old is she now?
She's gonna be 4 March 9th.
That's
which
adorable.
Is 1 month from now.
That's adorable.
She is something else. She's exactly what I should get for karma.
What does that mean exactly?
Oh, she is going to be such a handful. She's a menace. Yeah, but she's a beautiful menace. You know, like, so she's already got me wrapped up.
So how does fatherhood change you as a person?
It's like I have a lot more thoughts about how I act being watched as opposed to how I act making me feel as some type of way. I'm more cognizant that there are little eyes on me.
Yeah,
and I can't act
watching your every move, and
if I have, this is where the fork in the road happens every single time I'm around my daughter now, because I can either react the way that I reacted for 20 years being a drug addict, and F this, F that, blah 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 blah, or I could be a man of integrity and try and let her just see me by the way that I act. So that makes it easier to stay sober too.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. No, I hear a lot, and not just addicts, people really not fulfilling their potential until they have children because they have someone else to live for.
Well, she's not my first child either.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a son that I actually recently just had to sign over for adoption, which is really what's best for him to my ex-wife and her new husband.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's still with family, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he's in wonderful hands. She's a great person.
You don't have a relationship with him?
Don't have a relationship with him. Haven't since he was a year old. So, it was the right thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, but sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy.
Okay.
And, I hate to, the reason I say that is because that wasn't enough. Like, fatherhood wasn't enough. I had a son, he was premature, and it didn't slow me down.
So she was an addict as well?
She was not. Nope, she was very normal. She's a muggle. She's not part of the
What's a muggle?
Wizarding world of
Heroin. Okay, that's right. She's a muggle. Is that what you guys call them?
Yes, that's what I do because I'm
that's
a rare breed of drug addict.
So you're a drug addict nerd.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that you live in relative normalcy, right? You're a law-abiding citizen, relatively.
No, I am.
You are?
Yep, nowadays.
I mean, do you have any dreams, aspirations, anything that you want to get into?
Well, I mean, I'm an apprentice electrician. I just started doing that kind of around the same time when
Do you enjoy that?
When that happened, I do. I enjoy it a lot.
Okay.
I like to do drafting, things like that. So I've been thinking about bouncing around the idea quite a bit about maybe trying to get a certificate program and getting back into doing computer drafting because that's something I did.
And then what would you be drafting?
Whatever they want me to draft.
Okay.
I don't really care. It's kind of like growing up, I was always kind of taught like, do what you love and it's not work.
Sure.
And I like to draw on the computer. It's kind of fun for me to take.
Can you draw freehand?
Not as good as I used to be able
Okay.
to. But yeah, I mean, I can draw a little bit.
Okay.
I like to write. It would be pretty cool to get something I've written published somewhere. I think that would be pretty neat. That's a cool goal.
Okay. So what have you written short stories?
Poetry usually.
Poetry.
Yeah, I got an Instagram with a bunch of random poetry that I put on there. I haven't written recently because
How come I don't know about this?
Yeah, I think you do.
Do I?
Yeah.
All right, I need that information ASAP.
All right. Right now?
Well, I mean,
all right.
You'll tell me and I'll put it on the screen or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
It's actually an Instagram account that I can't get into anymore because I got a new phone and don't have a new password.
Okay.
But whatever. I haven't been able to write all that much recently because life's kind of good and I kind of write better when I'm in pain.
Sure.
So,
sure.
I like to write, so getting something published would be pretty cool.
Okay.
And I don't know, man. I own some property.
Okay.
I don't have really. My dreams are like very American Gothic now, as opposed to 20 years ago I wanted to play in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of lost that youthful idealism, right?
Yeah, it's like you kind of, the older you get, the less kind of weird rosy-colored glasses you have about becoming a superstar.
You've been through it, and you kind of see shit for what it is, and you kind of see where you stand with everybody else, right?
Well, I mean, and who knows? I think about this a lot. Han Solo wasn't Han Solo before he was 45 years old. He was Harrison Ford, a construction worker. Another nerd reference for you people.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was hired as a set worker. I think he was in a movie before that, but he was doing construction on the set for A New Hope, and George Lucas liked the way that he looked and slapped him in that sleeve vest.
That gives me a lot of hope because he became a cultural icon.
It's Harrison Ford, man. Yeah, it's Jack Ryan.
So technically he wasn't, I mean, not technically, but he wasn't considered successful until he was 45 years old.
Exactly, he was 45. So, I'm only 42.
Sure.
Could happen any minute. So I'm just always trying to stay back to that kind of acting accordingly at all times because who knows when the opportunity is going to come. This could be the opportunity right here, Gene, and you're coming.
Well, I was just going to say, you had just mentioned just a few minutes ago that you were kind of brought up you were brought up on the notion of do what you love and it's not considered work.
Right.
And You love to talk.
I do love to talk.
You love to talk. So, like, what's up, dude? I mean, like, what's up with the podcast, man? I'd love to produce a podcast for you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that I think would be fun to do. I've written down some ideas at home. I got them written down in a notebook.
Let's hear it, dude. Let's.
One of them was so being somebody that's had a little bit of time in being a drug addict. I had an idea about like being a chameleon, like being able to explain what it's like to be able to fit into a trap house, in Roxbury, and then the next day be at a wine tasting at the W Hotel.
Oh, dude, people would eat that shit up.
So, that's something that I think is unique about me that I could talk about I could teach a class about,
Sure.
I would have a good time doing
Sure.
that. I think that's the only thing I could think of off the top of my head. Now you got me.
Okay.
Probably red-cheeked.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So, like, would that be kind of the theme of like the overall podcast?
It certainly could be. I mean,
I think honestly, I think the theme should just be you. Because like we are all evolving individuals, right? And the person you were on your first episode is gonna be a completely different person than you would be on your 100th, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So kind of being
Developing
pigeonholed.
personality.
Yeah, being pigeonholed to this, theme, I don't think would be best for someone like you.
Oh,
I feel
think
like
that's a compliment. I'm taking it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I meant it as a compliment.
Versatile.
You're very versatile. And I think, the thing about these creative pursuits is that you discover a lot about yourself along the way.
I discovered a lot about myself on the last one we did.
Okay, and for full transparency, this is actually our second podcast. This is only one. You guys are only seeing this one because I am the host and the producer. There's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of those parts weren't moving.
Well put.
Weren't moving when we last recorded, and it's unfortunate because it was such a great conversation. But this was a great conversation as well.
Absolutely, it was.
There will be even more great conversations in the future. And I would like to thank you for doing this again.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Again, we're going to do this again in the near future.
I like it.
Hopefully on your podcast.
That would be something.
Figure that out. And until next time, guys.
All right. Thank you.